All right, I'm going to answer a question that some have asked. So let's watch my really cool intro and then we'll go into something not fishing. You know, when I posed for all those, it was like, all right, so what we're going to do, we're going to talk about how I write some of my books. Some of you know that I have written half a dozen better books, and one of my favorite series before I had my brain trauma was my science fiction series. And you can get these on Amazon. So there's Phoenix Rising. This is the first book. And then there's Orion Rising, the second book. One thing about, after I had my brain trauma, it was really difficult for me to get back to science fiction. And I'll tell you why. Because science fiction is very, very difficult to write. You can't just sit down and write a story. Maybe write an outline of a story, but you can't really write the book. So, I found this, and it's stained and old. All right, Phoenix Rising it's been published for a while now, and Orion Rising. So, when you write a book, this is when I write a book, I first come up with a storyline, and it'll change a lot. And so in the storyline, you write down what we call a storyboard. And each in the storyboard, you're going to come up with locations and then characters. And these characters have to have their assigned roles and then their descriptions in them. So each one of these characters have an assigned role and a description. And then, of course, in sci-fi, in my sci-fis, it's space traveling with planets and aliens and stuff like that. But you got to have your bad guy, and you got to, when you come up with a planet, so this is, I must have spilled some water on this. But this is a sentient planet 521, red planet. I think it's the first planet in Phoenix Rising. But I had to describe the planet in my head and then put it on paper. So this was, of course, a red planet. Trees 150 feet tall. Teal, large foliage, crimson vegetation, cerulean hills, red fields, 3 moons, organic life in a closed ecosystem. I put down hostile. And atop of the food chain was an eagle, type of bird of prey, 10-foot wingspan, with claws, with a PSI in its claws of 1,000 pounds, teeth razor sharp, fitted with armor like scales. So this kind of almost like a dragon, the way it was picturing in my head. And then what I did is I had to come up with an alien culture, and the Antorians, and they're 6'6" bipedals, and then I put down all these different things, and then of course their names, and then describe them and give them roles. So when you write science fiction, it's a lot of work. And then I had to come up with the commerce building, the bar scene, how it was sort of created, where I would actually, the different levels, the different floors in it. Anyway, it was, you can see, when you write a science fiction book, I had to come up with All science fiction is based on real science. All of it. It just takes a little bit of fact and sort of exaggerates it. For instance, the ship, the Phoenix, that's the name of the ship right now, or in the book series, is the Phoenix. The Phoenix, it has a anti-proton engine, which is based on fact. There are anti-protons, or in Star Trek they call it antimatter. And then there's positive protons. With every positive proton, there's an antiproton in science. It's just the way it is. And antiprotons are extremely powerful. And so you can power anything with an antiproton. Really an amazing thing. It's real science. So basically, I had to come up with something like this. And then the warp drive, which is what in the first book, I'm trying to save the planet, but at the same time, somebody's trying to steal my technology. And that's Paul Orion, bad guy. He's the bad guy. He hires bounty hunters, and he comes after me. And so the warp drive is what Paul Orion wants for his own selfish means. And I'm sort of an idealist, definitely an idealist. I don't want to use technology for bad, all right? I want it to use for good. And the warp drive is quite interesting. It's not like Star Trek, which Star Trek misidentifies warp. They describe warp as a light engine. Well, going the speed of light is not warp speed, okay? It's just not. It's light speed. Warp speed is where you take space and you fold it and you punch through it, creating a shortcut. So even the concept of warping space is something that's been theorized. And so in my book, whenever I warp, you got to think, okay, if you're coming through this side, you're going to pop out this side. So you got to make sure you don't pop out and hit something. So warping space is complicated, and it requires a starting point and an end point. And so in my books, it's fun to create planets. Each planet is based on a real planet that exists and has been discovered. And I had to come up with, okay, there's one planet in Orion Rising, this one. And it's a planet based on reality that has molten glass storms. Well, all right. So I had to think, okay, what if this? I want, it's so beautiful, glass, just molten glass on this planet. But I wanted to put a civilization on there. So I had to think, okay, what civilization could live on a molten glass planet? Well, my in-laws, they lived at a place in Washington, near Seattle, on the Puget Sound, called Squim. And Squim's a real place. A lot of retired people there. And Squim is called the Blue Hole. So it's raining all the time in Seattle, right? But it misses Squim. It has more sunny days than anybody else. So it's called the Blue Hole. It's just a meteorological phenomenon. So I wanted to put a blue hole, or that concept, on this planet. And then, so there was an area on the planet that was free of these glass storms. But then again, it would be too hot to live on the surface. So I had to create a tunnel, basically an entryway into a subterranean world. And the world inside the world would be sparkling and just magnificent. And the people there, when I created the Glacian people, that they had a symbiotic relationship with an animal. And so Grace, who is the hero that we get from this planet, she's got a blue bat. And they have a symbiotic relationship that's rather unique. Also, in their skin pigmentation, the glass from the planet is part of their physical makeup, and they can manipulate it to create sort of an invisibility. It would be very difficult for anybody to see these individuals if they manipulated it. So, Grace is a beautiful black woman, athletic, with white hair, long white hair, just beautiful. A lot of scars, battle tested, and absolutely stunning ship too, which also has cloaking capabilities, just like the people of Glacia. When you start creating planets and people and stuff like that, you got to write all this stuff down. Okay, yeah, I got notepads, and you just write them all down. You create, each scene is written down here, how big it is, and the type of technology, the chemicals, the minerals and chemicals that I use. So it's just, look, there's even a picture of the warp drive. It's a picture of the warp drive right there. So when I describe it in my book, it helps me to, take something out of my head and put it into words. Now, I'm kind of, fortunate because I have a photographic memory, so I see pictures almost everything. So the trick then, of course, is to take the photographs in my head and translate them into words and put them down. So you could tell me, give me a word to describe an object, and instantly it appears in my head, and it starts to paint it and create it. So it's a very pictorial world that I live in. The art that you see behind me, and then on the books, all art I created. These are all 3D models. And then I manipulate them and I put them into scenes in a program on my computer. And it helps me to see where I'm going with the story when I have something physical, or actually not physical, but visual right in front of me. And as I create this, I can come on to the next chapter. Now it's interesting, in the Phoenix Rising book, he's very sarcastic like I am. But when I finished it, it lacked a little something. So I rewrote portions of the book and added a chapter. And I was trying to remember the chapter I wrote. Yeah, here it is. Shia. Chapter 15. I added that. I wanted to add a little more comedy in it. So I created a matriarchal society on a planet with a sole man. Named him the Architect. He was used for obvious purposes. And he was a little full of himself. But he wasn't the ruler, but he was treated with dignity and with, honor. And when we landed on the planet, I couldn't go and meet the queen of the planet. So my wife and my daughters did. And, of course, the architect had, he's a flirtatious guy. And I just had such a fun time writing these books. There is a third book that I had written a storyboard for. Now, mind you, Phoenix and Orion Rising do finish the story of Paul Orion. But I do leave a cliffhanger on there, and then I got this blood clot in my head, and that's when I got paralyzed and I lost speech, and I went months in seizures. So when I came out of it, I even to this day I have a hard time with my brain, and so it's harder for me to finish this trilogy. I do have the storyboard. I did start writing the book, and I lost it somewhere. The file, I lost it, and it's a shame because in the third book there's a sort of a mystery that has to be solved, and written like a murder mystery. But in the third book, there are three fronts of evil. And fortunately, at the end of Orion Rising, I have a large complement of heroes at the end of Orion Rising. And then in the third book, I could take those heroes and put them on different fronts, with three different bad guys doing three different bad things. And so it was supposed to be called The Ring Rising. And the ring is it is the collaboration of three really bad people. And they were the ones financing and backing Paul Orion in the second book. So the first book, he was really rich. In the second book, he had to go to the dark side and get financing. So it's kind of how I come about my sci-fi. It's a lot of work to write science fiction. And it is a lot of fun. You really are mirroring your own creator because you're creating. And your imagination's just going crazy. There's one water planet in Phoenix Rising made of crustacean intelligent life. And, of course, we have to rescue somebody from prison. Well, we battle, giant spiders, giant, crab-like intelligent sentient beings, break into a prison, have to rescue those people, and return them home. That's actually just an adventure within the adventure. Because the more people in Phoenix Rising, you're building the crew, and saving the planet at the same time. In Orion Rising, you've almost built everybody in your crew. And there you're going to add one more. But then come across with alliances. Because the Phoenix is just too outnumbered to go against the Orion Syndicate. And I needed more characters and more ships in order for the final battle in Orion. So it's quite fun. I'll put the links are below. And if you have a chance, they're available on Amazon. And give them a shot. They're very youth appropriate. I don't cuss. There's no horrible, it's not R-rated, okay? It's PG-13, I guess, maybe. Although you'll never see the F word in my books or come out of my mouth. So, a lot of sarcasm, a lot of fun. It's a family adventure. And I hope you guys have a chance to click below, order the books. But, my fishing book, where is it? Is this it? Yeah, this is it. That one debuted at #1 on Amazon. Very happy with that. You just have to name something terrible at fishing, and then you get sales. Go figure. Maybe I should have terrible at fishing space adventures. I don't know. Anyway, I hope you guys have a chance to look below and check them out. So thanks, everybody.